this. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this new Charli XCX album, Charli. Charli XCX is an English pop star, kind of an obsession of mine over the last few years. In 2013, she kind of caught me off guard with her True Romance album. Not only was this a genuinely good pop album, but it was just so catchy and sort of dark at times. It also had a great throwback vibe, and she had so much personality right off the bat. Not to mention, Nuclear Seasons is just such a banger of an intro. But I'll be honest, after that, for a while, I kind of lost interest in Charli for quite some time. To say that her follow-up album, Sucker, didn't have any catchy material on it would be a bold-faced lie. But she was going down a much more mainstream path. She also had that really awful collaboration with Iggy Azalea around that time. I just thought that she was going down a pretty rough patch. But then, Charli turned herself around in a big way and formed like a pretty gigantic partnership with the whole PC Music crew. There was the Vroom Vroom EP that she did with Sophie, which really got me back on board in a big way. 2017's Number One Angel was very bubbly and fun. Not only that though, most importantly, it was genuinely forward-thinking pop music. Tracks like ILY2 and Baby Girl were just so cute and bubbly. While Drugs and my personal favorite, Lip Gloss, pushed Charli in a completely different direction altogether. And while at the end of the day it's not as instantaneous, I think Pop 2 is even better. Backseat, Fembot, Unlock It, Porsche, all these tracks were just genre pushing and seemed to be pushing pop into the future. Now, these singles leading up to this album, one after one, have been pretty incredible and has honestly made this one of my most anticipated albums of the year. Let's chat about Charli. Now, like I said, the singles leading up to this album are pretty amazing. And all of them just seem to be just the sort of like progressive pop that I wanted to hear this year. Especially as far as Gone goes, featuring Christine and the Queens. Like, what a freaking track. Charli did not need to go as hard as she did on this track. It's unbearably powerful and wildly explosive. This, at the end of the day, is the perfect balance for Charli's sound. You may have to dig a little, but it still does sort of have that party sound, that party girl vibe that Charli ruled with years ago, but it's also just so emotional and so raw. And like, as far as I'm concerned, Charli has never come across this emotional and beaten down even. No, we've never quite seen her like this, but that doesn't take anything away from just how strong this track is. And Christine and the Queens sound right at home on this album, even though I've never been too wild about their music. Short story is, I have not heard a more powerful pop tune this year. Cross You Out, featuring Sky Ferrara, isn't as instantaneous. As a matter of fact, it took me multiple listens to even enjoy this track slightly. But it has grown on me quite a bit. I do like the very hulking, bulky atmosphere here. And her very airy vocals here contrast that pretty wonderfully. Once again, we do have a lot of emotional, beaten down vocals. And Sky Ferrara's performance here is, once again, right at home, even if Charli's brand of pop is far from where we usually hear Sky. And 1999, featuring Troye Sivan, is just so likable. This is the sort of upbeat, fun, quirky pop tune that Charli's been doing for years. It's upbeat, which is something that I kind of needed at this point in the album. Not to mention, as very bruised as this album is, it's just kind of great to hear Charli having fun for a few minutes. It's quirky, it's got a great bunch of throwback lyrics that come off really well, and not to mention, the music video is just a blast. And Troye Sivan's performance here is spot on. Him and Charli have great chemistry too. Warm, featuring the ladies from Haim, is actually a really great spot for Charli to be in as well. It's bubbly and it's soaring, but it once again shows Charli really pushing the boundaries of pop music. And I swear, there really aren't as many pop stars out there as you would think that can take this much advantage of autotune but give it that human touch that Charli does. And honestly, it's a really well-written track. As a matter of fact, most of this album is incredibly well-written, some of Charli's best. And while once again, I've never been that much into Haim, they really do seem like they fit in here wonderfully. And while it's probably the oldest track here, I still think Blame It On Your Love featuring Lizzo is an absolute blast. It's so colorful. I love Charli's attitude here. AKA, this is more or less kind of like the perfect Charli XCX track. I love the bombastic production and the big beat. And once again, Charli does seem to have her guard down and showing a little bit more emotion. But it is just as sweet, incredibly likable, and Lizzo's contributions are just fantastic. I really hope to hear more between these two. There's also quite a few incredibly deep ballads on here. Take, for example, White Mercedes. As a matter of fact, hearing this song lyrically for the first time, I was actually kind of taken back by it. This is one of the deepest tracks on here by far. Charli's always been sort of a party girl, even from her earliest stuff, but this makes you look at it in a completely new light. The first time I heard this track, I wasn't into the sort of downtrodden, gloomy vibe to it. But after really diving into the lyrics and seeing where Charli's coming from, it's actually pretty stunning. And honestly, as far as a Charli track goes, by herself with no guests in sight, this is one of the best tracks here. And I have a lot of the same things to say about Silver Cross. Once again, we're back to a very emotionally distraught and revealing Charli XCX. Once again, I do have to stress, I do feel like tracks like this need a couple of listens. But I do really like the upbeat and frantic vibes that eventually make their way in. And this production continues to be progressive even for Charli's standards. Also, February 2017 featuring Clyro and Yeji. This is a freaking gem of a track. So much so that I feel like if this landed on one of her last two mixtapes, they actually would fit right at home. It's upbeat and it's fun, but once again, there is a level of emotion here that we've never seen from Charli. But the adventurous production and the great features make this a fantastic track. Not to mention, that chorus, one of the best here. My only real complaint here is I kind of wish it was like twice as long. Now, I'll be honest, another couple of the tracks here that have their features were a little disappointing for me. First of all, we have Shake It with an absolute all-star cast for Charli's friends. Big Freedia, Pablo Vittar, Brooke Candy, and Cupcake. These are guys and gals that in the past she has done a lot of great things with. And it's a real shame because this is one of the most obnoxious tracks here. I feel like everyone on this track, including Charli, is trying to play catch up due to the very mature nature to the rest of this album. I feel like they really just tried to slip in that one party track and they just kind of flop. We also have Click featuring Kim Petras and Tommy Cash. Other Charli favorites. I expected more out of this as well. And instantly we're treated with a very big, clunky track, which sometimes works for her. And Charli's very quirky, almost bratty attitude here is adorable. But everything else about this track is pretty sloppy. It's just really noisy and obnoxious at times, especially towards the end. That's just unnecessary. And the rest of this album, I kind of just have to say that I expected a little bit more from Charli. Take, for example, the intro, Next Level Charli. It's a very pristine intro. The production is great. Still very futuristic, very forward-thinking. That's all fine and dandy. But for me, as far as Charli's performance here goes, I'm not really feeling it that much. Her very intense performance here, I kind of feel like it just sticks out like a sore thumb. I thought we left this behind in the Sucker days. It's not the worst thing here. There's certainly much worse evils here, and I do still like some of the elements to it. But I just, expect a lot more from Charli. And Thoughts may be my least favorite track here. It certainly catches you off guard at first with this big, looming beat and gigantic production. Again, Charli's performance here is just a little underwhelming. Lyrically, once again, I cannot commend Charli XCX enough for penning this. This is pretty unbelievable. But I don't know, to me she just seems out of it here. Dare I say bored. I don't want to know, seemingly has a ton of potential. I do seriously appreciate the very throwback ballad element to this track. I think that that's something that Charli could do a lot of great things with. But sadly, while the emotion is here and it's a pretty big sounding track, it's a little too hazy for me, a little too washed out. It's distracting. And with Official, I feel like I have a lot of the same problems. I can't be mad with these lyrics. Once again, they are so telling, even heart-wrenching. But instrumentally, this is a snooze fest. I wasn't expecting some quirky pop banger or anything here, but just give me something to hold on to. And it's a shame because the rest of the track is seriously adorable at times. But thankfully, Charli does wrap things up with a great finale with 2099, once again featuring Troye Sivan. In a lot of ways, I feel like this track kind of brings the album full circle. And also, in a lot of ways, it's the most futuristic track here. It's got plenty of attitude here and a surprising amount of swagger. While I know that this album was necessary for Charli, I can only hope that we hear more of this in the future. And Troye Sivan, once again, sounds great up against this wild, wonky, and futuristic beat. I actually would love to hear him more in this vein. So overall, I think this goes without saying, this is emotionally and lyrically Charli's biggest and best album to date. As a matter of fact, I think she should be commended for so much of the songwriting on here. And the result, most of the time, leads to some of the most inventive and powerful pop music that you're going to hear this year. But But sadly, because of that, some of the fun and progressiveness of her last couple of mixtapes and albums has kind of disintegrated. Not to mention, some of these features that should have been gold really end up being very disappointing. However, I digress. This is one of the best pop albums you're going to hear all year. I'm feeling a strong 7 on this album. Let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.